Hello, today topic is Minikube installation on Ubuntu. Actually, Minikube is a single node Kubernetes cluster. This can be installed on any Unix flavored machines like Linux, Ubuntu, and also in Windows, Mac OS and all. So let's example. This is official site actually. Minikube stars. It requires the minimum. I am taken all the documentation from the official site itself. It is a very simple installation. Minimum it required 2 CPUs. It is mandatory. Below this, it can be failed at the time of start of the Kubernetes cluster. And 2 GB free space, 20 GB disk space, and container. Container is you can use anything. And installation on Linux, there is a 3 flavors OS system. It is required. It is available: Linux, Mac OS, Windows. And also for architecture, also for very different for each of the flavor of Linux system. There is different architectures are there. Versions are available: stable version, binary, Debian, RPM. If it is Ubuntu, you have to download it Debian. Linux, Red Hat Linux, you can download RPM, any RPM and binaries. So these are the call commands to download. Start your cluster, interact with the clusters, deploy applications, manage a cluster. These are the things, very simple. I have documented already, prepared and documentation. Let me go through that. So Minikube is open source tool, a completely open source tool that facilitates local deployment of Kubernetes cluster. It is designed to simplify the process of learning, experiment, deploy, and test application in your own system before going to the complicated production grade environment on the real time. So it is very lightweight single node installation actually. There are not multi node can be deployed. So lightweight single node can be deployed in your local system. Okay. So the prerequisites are 2 GB RAM, 2 CPUs mandatory, and 20 GB free disk. Sudo user admin access, internet connections, and KVM. Docker, it is a container runtime interface that required for every Kubernetes flavor. Okay. So let's go into the installation. First of all, I have taken my EC2 machine from the AWS. I have provisioned EC2, AWS EC2 machine. This is the first time I'm logged in actually, a fresh installation. Nothing has executed as of now. So I am changing my host name actually. First, host name CTL, set host name minikube.demo.com. This .demo.com is nothing but it's a domain name of your organization. Minikube is the host name that also can be provided by our network administrator. So you need not to worry about it. Change the host name. Why we have to change the host name? It is a virtual name that can be easily identified instead of the IP addresses. Host name. This is my current host name. Host name -i. This is the IP address. Okay. So now the host name has been changed, and now I have to update my Ubuntu system with the current updates if any available. For that, let me apt update. apt advanced package tool. apt is nothing but advanced package tool. Like in Red Hat Linux, there is a RPM. Okay, so in Ubuntu flavor we use apt. So the updates has been completed. Now the system is up to date. Clear the screen, and the next step is install the Docker as a CRI, container runtime engine, to run the Kubernetes, any of the Kubernetes cluster, any multi-node, not only Minikube, Kubernetes on 2 node master node and 10 nodes or 20 nodes worker nodes also. You require CRI has to install on each and every cluster node. In Minikube, we have only one node because of it used for only development, testing, deploy application, and test in your own environment, and then go for the next level of testing on the complicated systems, either production or staging, or before that any development environment, or somewhere QA environment, wherever the company hierarchy, wherever needs to be applied. Before going to that, You have to test it your developed application in your environment. Okay, so install Docker. So for that I have to be first download few of the required packages: CS certificates, curl, GNFG, wget. These are the tools, RPMs required in Minikube to run smoothly. Clear the screen, done, and go to the change the permissions of the key rings. It is a app key rings. Here all keys are installed, and download the Ubuntu GPG. These are the all certificates and required packages for the Docker installation, and these are the repository needs to be added in the server repository to get the frequent update from the Docker. Done. Now again we need to, because Docker repository has been added to the server repository, now we need to be update the server repo again to be sync both of Docker certificates and Docker updates with server updates. So now everything is done. Next, Docker by runtime. Install the Docker now. Need to install Docker related plugins. CA is nothing but a community edition. In real time we can use it enterprise edition, EE. So it getting installed all Docker Swarm, Docker related all the tools it is going to be installing. Docker Compose, Docker CLI, everything it will bring to our system. Completed. I am clearing the screen. Now everything is done, and I am changing the Docker. While the Docker installation, Docker will create a Docker user. So we are running Docker in the Ubuntu, so we need to provide the Docker group to the Ubuntu. Currently what is the Ubuntu? Actually Ubuntu primary group is GID. Ubuntu primary group, Ubuntu itself. Every user primary group is user itself actually. So now what can we do? We need to change the primary group of Ubuntu to the Docker. Now check that. See, this primary group is not Docker, secondary group also Docker. So now Ubuntu is the one of the group member of the Ubuntu user having these many group IDs. These are the membership of the groups. To run the Docker related any command, it should be Ubuntu user should be as a group of Docker. Now check the Docker status. Is it running or not? Yeah, it is running. Started it 1 minute ago. So started Docker application container engine. Okay. So you know what is container and what is the container engine. Now download and install Minikube binaries. Downloading Minikube binary. It will download in the current location. This is the Minikube library binary has been downloaded. Now sudo install Minikube to the user local bin. Directly the executable, whenever you start install given the path, it is going to be installed in the given path, user local bin. Every command will be invoked from the user local bin in Unix system. Okay, done. Verify Minikube is installed or not. Let's see. Yeah, now Minikube version is v1.331. Okay, completed. Now what has to do? To interaction between the Minikube and Kubernetes cluster, there should be a command line interface that is called kubectl. Okay, we need to install this tool also. Let me install it. Clear the screen. Okay, change the Minikube permissions and then move the existing Minikube here to the user local bin. Done. Now check the kubectl version. Now the version is displayed. It means kubectl has been installed. Ignore this error. This can be vanished after a full configuration of the Kubernetes cluster. Now start Minikube cluster. So Minikube status, let's see that Minikube status, Minikube not found. Now start that Minikube start -- driver. What is the driver we are using? Docker. If you are not giving the -- driver equal Docker, by default it can be pick up whatever the default container runtime interface is available, that can be pick up itself and it can run. Now actually what is doing the Minikube start? It is downloading the Docker. It is used to Docker driver, downloading the images required for Minikube images to configure the control plane node as a Minikube. So this is control plane node name Minikube. So preloading the images of all, right, Kubernetes required API server, controllers, schedulers, etcd. These are all images needs to be pulled down to the server and configure it here. So that is what it is doing currently. Download Kubernetes. It is installing Kubernetes 1.30. So creating Docker container, CPUs 2, memory 2 GB. This is the requirement actually. That's what I told you very first. 2 CPUs and 2 GB memory is the most important, because Minikube itself while installing pick up the required CPUs and memory. My server having 2 CPUs and 4 GB memory and 20 GB hard disk. Preparing Kubernetes 1.30 on Docker. Docker version is 26.1.1. It can generate the certificate and it is bootstrapping, booting up control plane. Control plane is nothing but a master plane. Now you can see the RBAC rules has been configured. After that CNI container network interface has been configured. Kubernetes components also verifying. So now everything is storage provisioning and everything is done. Kubernetes is now configured. Minikube cluster default namespace. Clear the screen. Let's check it now. Minikube status. See this, everything is running. Control plane type Minikube, type control plane, host running, kubelet running, API server running, kubeconfig configured. Now check that kubectl get namespaces. First of all, namespaces. These are the default namespaces after configuring or installing the Minikube or Kubernetes cluster itself. Whatever you do at the first time, you will get these 4 default namespaces. In any production grade environment also, these 4 is mandatory. It can be reside. Apart from this, as many as namespaces can be created as per the project and organization requirement. Okay, so default kube node lease public system. These are the default namespaces. Okay, let me check that kubectl get pods -a means all. So these are all means not now. There are no default or no lease. Basically, kube system namespaces containing all the system related pods are running, which are nothing but system related is nothing but API server, controller, proxy. These are required to run the Kubernetes cluster actually. So etcd is storage, QL storage, core DNS is the. We can see that now this has been completed. Minikube status. We have seen that status. Everything is running like this. Now see this cluster. Some of the cluster commands can be executed. kubectl get nodes. How many nodes are there? Node short form is NO. How many nodes are there? Only one node, because Minikube is a single node architecture, single node cluster. So control plane only. You can't increase or decrease the number of nodes. The Kubernetes cluster version is 1.30.0. Cluster info. It gives you DNS or core DNS name, endpoints. This is Kubernetes control plane endpoint. This is the endpoint and core DNS endpoint. Okay, and let's example deploy one deployment. for the health check purpose. So kubectl create deployment name -image equal to nginx. I'm deploying nginx. It has deployed. Let's check the deployment has been created in the default namespace. kubectl get all -a. By default, if you are not giving any namespace name, it will every deployment will be by default created in the default namespace. kubectl get pod. You can see this is the pod created in the default namespace. How will you find out? -n default. See this -n is nothing but a namespace, default namespace. There is a pod running, pod IP. Which node it is running? Minikube node. This overall details -o wide. If you give the options -o wide, it will display IP address, which node it is running, and all. kubectl get all -a means whatever is running in this Minikube cluster, Kubernetes cluster, all the pods, services, deployments, replica sets, everything can be displayed. -a means all namespaces. Capital A means all namespaces. In short form, -a. See this services, demand set, deployments, replica set, pods, everything is running. Whatever they are running in the Kubernetes cluster, that will be displayed if you give this type of sometime -a won't work. So what you can do is all namespaces, or just simply you can give some of the environment. It will not work. -a capital A, it will display the same one. -name all namespaces equals to -a. Okay, so now these are the add-ons. I can upload this document in my GitHub repository, public repository. You can check there. These are the add-ons available for Minikubes. I will show you that add-ons are required to enable it to run some of the disable means it is disabled. Storage provisioning is enabled. By default, whatever is required, that is already comes with at the time of installation. It will enable automatically. Who are maintainer and all Google maintainer. So ingress is Kubernetes, ingress DNS, Minikube, third party, inspector, gadget, Istio provisioner, third party Istio itself, service mesh itself, it can be provided by third party, nothing but Istio. Okay, these are all you can whatever dashboards and all whatever you want, you can enable it simply by enabling this add-on enable dashboard. Let's say example, now dashboard is disabled in our context. See this dashboard is disabled. Let me enable it. Simple to enable any add-ons in Kubernetes. Now it is done. Let's see that add-on list grep -i dashboard. You can see now enabled. Okay, simple to enable and disable. Now how to stop Kubernetes? Simple. Minikube. If you stop the Minikube, then Kubernetes cluster is automatically stopped. Stopping node, Minikube node, powering off Minikube via SSH. One node stopped. Now check that Minikube status. Stopped. Again you want to start Minikube start. This time it will quickly start. It won't take much time as the first time after installation we did, because it cached all the images already downloaded. So need not to go to the repository, docker.io repository, gcr.io repository, docker.io repository, and it can be enabled. Now check that Minikube status running. If you want to delete Minikube, simply there is simple commands in Minikube delete. Deleting Minikube in Docker, container Minikube, deleting container, remove everything. Minikube status. There is no Minikube. Okay. Yes, this is it all. I am uploading this one in my GitHub repository, this document. You can try it in yourself.